Hello children. So till now we have discussed about asexual reproduction. Now we shall see sexual reproduction in plants. How does the sexual reproduction takes place in plants? See here, like human beings, plants also reproduce. Like humans and animals, plants also reproduce. Let us see sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Sexual reproduction in flowering plants. So there are reproductive parts for a flower. The stamen and pistil are the reproductive parts of a flower. See here, if you see, this one is called as this filament type of structure is called as, all these are called as stamens. So this is called as anther, as well as pistil or the reproductive. This is called as pistil. The middle one is called as pistil. Stamen is the male reproductive part. It produces pollen grains in the anther. This is called as anther. This box-like structure is called as anther, which contains the male germ cells. So those are called as male gamete. So remember, stamen is the male reproductive part. Okay, pistil is the female reproductive part. This is called as a pistil. Pistil always remains constant. It produces ovules in the ovary which contain the female germ cell, that is called as female gametes. So in the reproductive parts of a flower, stamens are the male reproductive parts, whereas the pistil is the female reproductive part. So this stamen produces male reproductive gametes, whereas pistil produces female gametes. Those are called as germ cells. Let us see what is meant by pollination. The transfer of pollen grains, you might have studied in your earlier classes, the transfer of pollen grains from the anther, which we have seen, to the stigma of a flower is called as pollination. So from the anther to the stigma of a flower, this is called as the stigma. So from here, from the right hand side, it transfers to, whether it is right or left, it transfers from this place to this place. From the anther to the stigma of a flower is called as pollination. It takes place by wind, water or insects, right? It may take place by either wind. If wind clashes, then the anther clashes with the pistil and then pollination takes place, or else by water, by the water flow, or else insects. Insects may carry the pollen grains. If the pollen grains are transferred from the anther to the stigma of the same flower, which we have seen now, this is called as self-pollination. It happens to the another flower also. From one flower to the stigma of another flower, it is called as the cross-pollination. Pollination takes place by insects, wind and water. See here, insects, butterflies, dragonflies, all these carries is pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. Next is fertilization. After the pollen grains transferred to the stigma, which is stagnant there, it produces a pollen tube which passes through the style and enters the ovary. This is called as a stigma, and it obviously what it leads to, pollen tube, and then it leads to finally ovary and ovule. In the ovule, the male germ cells, those are called as male gametes, fuses with the female germ cells. They both fertilize with each other and produces a zygote. When male and female reproductive or germ cells fuse, then it produces a zygote. This zygote, and this process is called as a fertilization. After fertilization, the zygote divides several times and forms the embryo. Zygotes, after multiple divisions, it produces embryo, which then develops into the seeds, and the ovary develop into fruit. After fertilization, ovary develop into fruits. See, this outer part develop into fruits, whereas the seeds, embryo, which is there, this is called as embryo sac, and this embryo develop into seeds. Seeds will be there, no? That is nothing but embryo. After the zygote, after multiple divisions, it produces embryo. This embryo becomes a seed, and then the ovary, after fertilization, it becomes fruit. This is called as fertilization process. The process of transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma, which is stagnant or which is still standing, that is called as pollination. There are two different types of pollination, self-pollination or cross-pollination. And cross-pollination. Self-pollination means this process takes place in the same flower, within the same flower. And this pollination may happen with the help of wind, water, or else insects like butterflies, dragonflies, etc. Or else the process of transfer of pollen grains from one part of the one flower to another flower of a different plant. That is called as cross-pollination. Next we shall see reproduction in human beings in the next video.